Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching the Today I Found Out YouTube channel. Then in the video today, we're looking at the fact that Mark Wahlberg was a drug dealer and was charged with attempted murder before forming Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Mark Whalberg was born the youngest of 9 children, all living in a 3-bedroom apartment. He dropped out of school around the age of 14 and joined a gang. During this time, he was reportedly in trouble with the law around 20 to 25 times. This was for dealing drugs and various other offenses. He also claims that he became addicted to cocaine during this period. Things came to a head when he was 16 years old and he attacked 2 Vietnamese men without provocation. He attacked the first with a stick and then punched the second, permanently blinding him in the process. The official record of the event, as recorded by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Superior Court, is as follows. Count 1. At approximately 9 p.m. on April the 8th, 1988, Than Lam, a Vietnamese adult male who resides in Dorchester, traveled by car to 998 Dorchester Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts. At 998 Dorchester Avenue, Than Lam left his car carrying 2 cases of beer. As he crossed the sidewalk, Mark Whalberg attacked Than Lam. Whalberg was carrying a large wooden stick approximately 5 feet long and 2 to 3 inches in diameter. Whalberg approached Than Lam, calling him a Vietnamese fucking shit, then hit him over the head with a stick. Than Lam was knocked to the ground unconscious. The stick broke in two and was later recovered from the scene. Than Lam was treated overnight at Boston City Hospital. After police arrested Whalberg later on the night of April the 8th, 1988, Whalberg was informed of his rights and returned to the scene of 988 Dorchester Avenue. In the presence of 2 officers, he stated, "You don't have to let him identify me. I'll tell you now, that's the motherfucker whose head I split open," or words to that effect. Count 2. As a police officer arrived at the scene of 988 Dorchester Avenue, Whalberg and 2 other youths who were with him fled up Dorchester Avenue towards Pearl Street. Shortly after 9 p.m. on April the 8th, 1988, Hoa Trinh, an adult Vietnamese male who resides in Dorchester, was standing several blocks away from 998 Dorchester Avenue near the corner of Dorchester Avenue and Pearl Street. Hoa Trinh was not aware of the altercation outside 998 Dorchester Avenue. Whalberg ran up to Hoa Trinh, put his arm around Hoa Trinh's shoulder and said, police coming, let me hide." After a police cruiser passed, Whalberg punched Trinh in the eye, causing him to fall to the ground. Police arrived and Hoa Trinh identified Whalberg as the person who punched him. Whalberg was placed under arrest and read his rights. Thereafter, he made numerous unsolicited racial statements about gooks and slant-eyed gooks. After being returned to 998 Dorchester Avenue, Whalberg identified Than Lam as the person he hit over the head with a stick. For these 2 attacks, Whalberg was arrested and initially charged with attempted murder, but it was later reduced to criminal contempt, which carried a maximum sentence of 10 years. After pleading guilty, he was given a 2-year sentence at the Deer Island House of Correction in Boston. In the end, he only had to serve 45 days in the correctional facility. Unlike most that go through such facilities, the time he spent locked up inspired him to try and turn his life around. "As soon as I began that life of crime, there was always a voice in my head telling me I was going to end up in jail. 3 of my brothers had done time. My sister went to prison so many times I lost count. Finally, I was there, locked up with the kind of guys I'd always wanted to be like. Now I'd earned my stripes, and I was just like them, and I realized it wasn't what I wanted at all. I'd ended up in the worst place I could possibly imagine, and I never wanted to go back." He started his turnaround by reaching out to his parish priest for guidance and support, as well as leaving the gang that he was a member of. Mark Whalberg's big break came thanks to his older brother, Donnie. Donnie Whalberg was already famous at this point with his success as a member of the New Kids on the Block, a band Mark had initially been a member of at the age of 13, but quit before the group became famous. Mark had been working as a bricklayer after serving time when Donnie helped him form Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, including helping him get a record contract and producing the first record the group made. The debut album, which was released when Mark Whalberg was 19 years old, ended up going platinum, largely thanks to the hit single Good Vibrations and the follow-up single Wild Side. After his music career started to hit the tank a couple of years later, Whalberg dropped his Marky Mark persona and decided to take up acting. Despite early skepticism by critics, he made the switch successfully, with his first critical success coming from appearing in The Basketball Diaries, though he had a few roles before this, most notably opposite Danny DeVito in Renaissance Man. Since then, he has become one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, reportedly commanding around $12 to $15 million per movie. During his Marky Mark fame period, Whalberg famously worked for Calvin Klein as an underwear model. Somewhat more humorously, he also put out a workout video, Form Focus Fitness. And now for another bonus fact. Mark Wahlberg's siblings siblings are Arthur, James, Debbie, Michelle, Paul, Tracy, Robert, and Donnie. He also has half-siblings, Scott, Buddy, and Donna, who are children of his dad by another woman. Though all in all, Wahlberg has turned his life around quite nicely, especially in recent years, where he's been involved in numerous charitable endeavors, particularly benefiting underprivileged youth, he still had several instances of violence in his post-prison younger years, around the Marky Mark period. For instance, when he was 21 years old, he viciously and repeatedly kicked the plaintiff, Robert D. Crehan, in the face and jaw, while a friend of his, Dirk McCall, held Crehan down to the ground. This resulted in the man's jaw being broken, as well as a claimed decrease in learning ability. Wahlberg also famously had a fight with certain members of Madonna's entourage, which he states Madonna still owes him an apology over. He also attacked a security guard, which resulted in him having to appear in several anti-bias advertisements. Wahlberg states about his early life, "I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I've done bad things, but I never blamed my upbringing for that. I never behaved like a victim so that I would have a convenient reason for victimizing others. Everything I did wrong was my own fault. I was taught the difference between right and wrong at an early age. I take full responsibility." And now for another bonus fact. Wahlberg was originally cast in both Ocean's 11 and Brokeback Mountain, but turned down both roles. In Ocean's 11, he was cast as Linus Caldwell, but withdrew and Matt Damon was cast instead. In Brokeback Mountain, he states he withdrew due to being uncomfortable with the sex scenes. And now for another bonus fact. Wahlberg and several friends originally had tickets to fly on United 93, one of the planes hijacked by terrorists on September the 11th, 2001. However, they ended up deciding to instead charter a plane to go attend a film festival in Canada before returning to Los Angeles. Wahlberg has since stated that, "If I was on that plane with my kids, it wouldn't have went down like it did. There would have been a lot of blood in that first-class cabin, and then me saying, 'Okay, we're gonna land somewhere safely. Don't worry.'" Obviously, this didn't go over very well with the people who lost loved ones on that plane, nor with the general public. Given Wahlberg's apparent propensity towards violence, even when unprovoked, the first part of his claim isn't really that far-fetched. However, the passengers of United 93 did revolt once they realized the bomb threats the terrorists were using to control them weren't likely true. They learned this after several passengers heard of the planes that hit the Twin Towers from talking to loved ones on their cell phones. Unfortunately, though, the terrorists at this point were obviously the ones flying the plane. Once the passengers had nearly broken into the cockpit, the hijackers made the decision to simply crash the plane, with one recorded as saying, "Is that it? I mean, should we put it down?" and another responding, "Yes, pull it down." The pilots then turned the plane over and began shouting Allahu Akbar while the passengers continued to fight. The official report states that at the time of impact, the passengers were just seconds from taking complete control. So obviously, Wahlberg, with his temper and fighting ability, being there or not would have made no difference, as the hijackers would have put the plane down all the same the second it was apparent a passenger or a group of passengers were about to retake the aircraft. And now for another bonus fact. Wahlberg never returned to high school after dropping out at the age of 14, but he did eventually get his GED. And now for another bonus fact. Since New Kids on the Block, Donnie Wahlberg also took up acting, appearing in such works as Band of Brothers, the Saw films, and The Sixth Sense. For the latter role in The Sixth Sense as Vincent Gray, he had to lose 43 pounds. And now for another bonus fact. New Kids on the Block was formed by Maurice Starr, who held auditions in Boston with over 500 boys turning out. The first person selected was Donnie Wahlberg, who later convinced Starr to add Mark to the group, as well as some of his friends. And now for another bonus fact. New Kids on the Block almost never were, as far as becoming famous is concerned. Their debut album was a flop, and their second album initially didn't do any better. After their first album, the group could only get gigs at school dances and the like. When their second album was released, it also initially flopped, with little interest in their first single, Please Don't Go Girl. Finally, the label had decided to drop the group, but at the same time, a single radio station in Florida had been playing the song steadily. This led to it becoming one of the most requested songs of that station. When Columbia Records learned of this, they decided to promote the song more, and things took off from there. And now for another bonus fact. Interestingly, due to their later success, their debut album ultimately ended up selling 4 million copies despite the initial flop. All total, New Kids on the Block has sold over 70 million albums. And now for another bonus fact. The original name of New Kids on the Block was NYNUK, but upon signing with Columbia Records, they were told they needed to change the name. And now for another bonus fact. Donnie Wahlberg also had his share of trouble with the law, such as being charged with first-degree arson for setting fire to a hotel hallway in Kentucky, the Seelbach Hotel. The charges were later lowered, and he simply had to make a series of public service ads about fire safety, as well as anti-drug and anti-drunk driving ads. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.